Whatever stage you're at with your trading, it's important to stop and gain perspective before planning your next move. Take a break from the charts and join in the discussion with our hosts, Jason Graystone and Akil Stokes, as they share insights, opinions, and expertise on all things trading. Grab a coffee, pull up a chair, and join the Trader Coffee Break.
Welcome back to the Trader Coffee Break. I hope you're all doing well. I'm Jason Graystone.
I'm Akil Stokes, and today we're going to talk about some of the most common mistakes that especially newer traders make in the market. And I know we have a massive list, Jason. It's, obviously we can't touch on all of them today, but I'm sure as we keep doing this show, we'll mention them all. But I guess we'll try to touch on some of the most important ones and maybe specifically to newer traders who are just entering the realm versus kind of the mistakes that experienced traders make, because that does happen too. So what do you think is a good starting point to kick off at? What is one of the big ones for you?
Yeah, I think definitely grab a coffee and let us know some of your mistakes that you've made in the comments right now before we even kick off. But I'd have to say, if we're kind of going from the start of the journey, I would say just skipping the basics, trying to run before you can crawl. I think that's a big mistake. A lot of people make that mistake. I see a lot of people trying to do too much too soon. I don't know about you, Akil. What do you find?
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience, that was my biggest mistake of I wanted to kind of, I always say I was focused on learning what to trade instead of how to trade. I just wanted the strategy and the signal and that magic quick fix. And it cost me more time than it would have if I just took kind of the quote unquote, the long route and did it the right way. But yeah, I think that's a big one. I think people are, they don't understand that the basics is like the foundation. It's like a house, right? Or any type of business, right? If you try to jump into a business right away and just do all the fun kind of shiny stuff that you see on TV, your business is going to fail. And if you don't establish a business plan and a solid foundation to your house, it's going to crumble. And trading is the same way. We see so many traders do that, unfortunately.
And the result of doing that, I think people get too far down the line and then they realize that they've skipped something that they don't understand. Then they're too embarrassed to ask. And it's like, I shouldn't be doing this. And people are going to question how can you be doing that if you don't even know that? And it really gets them in this kind of trap. And then they've really not progressed very far because they end up giving up, and which is tragic, really. So that's definitely one of the most common for sure. But on the flip side to that is learning too much of the basics, right?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
yeah, we've mentioned it before, but we mentioned baby pips and all the rest of it, and great resources. But learning every single indicator and every single strategy and every single candlestick formation and actually, we saw this chart, one we use a lot, right?
Hey, let's talk about sharing my chart, man. Get it off of there. I told you about that.
If you've got a chart looking like that, man, there's no way that you can take a trade. It's like, and let alone, it's going to take you years to learn. Like, you're just going to have to remember everything. So you just kind of have to know enough. You need to know what you need to know. And that is, I kind of liken it to language. Like when you go to another country, you don't need to read the dictionary of that language. You need to just learn how to get by day to day. That's kind of how you want to flow with it, and then pick up the language as you go. Don't get stuck on the learning everything.
Yeah. Now here's the question for you, because it's a delicate balance, and obviously we're both educators, so we kind of know how to create things and form things in a way that's best able for traders to progress. But as a newer trader, let's say maybe you haven't found a mentor or a coach, and you're just kind of out there, you're new and you're learning. How do you make that decision on, like, how do you know when am I learning enough? When am I learning too much? Is there a way to kind of cut yourself off, or does that come from having accountability partners or having someone tell you, like, if you're doing it by yourself, how do you make that decision?
This is why a coach or a mentor is key from day one, right? Because they'll guide you and tell you what you need to learn and how much you need to learn. But really, when you look at trading, we've been through this many times before. It's price action. It's understanding support and resistance, understanding cycles in the market, understanding a few candlestick patterns, and understanding what a pip is, and how to read the chart, and they're the kind of basics we're talking about, really. That it's understanding price, what you're looking at, what you're staring at, naked, like as price action. That's it, without any indicators, and understanding that. And then when you go on to a strategy development and you pick a strategy, then you almost go back and then look at filters to add, and then you're just adding 1, 2. We had this discussion earlier. I don't recommend that anyone adds more than 4 filters, really, or indicators to any strategy, because it's just not necessary. Like,
I mean, do you need them? I mean, the people like the chart you shared before, and I think this stems from a different problem. Not to get too off track. I stopped showing that, man. But you have a chart like that, and I think one of the problems that goes with like learning too much, and if you get seduced by these indicators, you have these fancy MACDs, RSIs, stochastics, Bollinger Bands, Aruns, ATL, like all these Deutschian channels, that you just want to kind of pile them all on each other because you're learning so much and everything is new and shiny, and you think that, hey, the more I have, the better signal it will give to you, which is probably the exact opposite. But I think it stems from not actually knowing what indicators do. I think so many traders out there don't even understand the indicator that you use. Like I said, if you talk about not using more than 4, they're probably not even, it's hard enough to find 4 different, I'm talking about filters, but 4 different indicators that tell you 4 different things. Like many of these indicators are going to tell you the exact same thing in a different way. So you don't need an RSI and a stochastics on your chart at the same time. They're going to be so similar that you're getting the same signal. But again, it goes back to, like you said, I think that was a great answer with learning the basics of price action, because if you unlearn the basics of price action, I think what you'll find is that when you go back to one of those shiny things you're playing with before, you now know how to use it in a productive way. So instead of just, hey, I've got this indicator on my chart, and when this indicator does this, I'm supposed to do that. Now you can actually see and really figure out how that indicator works, because that indicator is based off price action anyway. That's what it all stems to. So
of course,
I think that was great, especially with the idea of like, you don't really need more than 4 things or filters, whatever you want to call it. It's just overkill.
And another thing is, I guess it's a mistake. People mistake indicators for strategies. Like, I had someone say earlier, how can we trust the RSI strategy? And it was like they were talking about it as a strategy, or a Bollinger Band is a strategy. Well, it's not really a strategy; it's an indicator, and you have to understand the difference. Don't make that mistake. If you just trade off of one of those indicators, you're going to probably end up going broke. There's no edge.
It's like the moving average, right? I'm just going to trade every time a 21 crosses a 50.
And even with moving averages, so it's the same thing. Like, you want to build an edge, so at least use 2 moving averages or 3 moving averages, so that you're not just using one indicator as a strategy. There's definitely a difference. So another one, obviously, is going live too early. I think going live straight away.
we just shut someone down in the live room minutes ago for this. He's like, hey, Akil, remember that trade call you made yesterday? Well, I took it. I'm like, newer guy. So we gave him a little bit of an out. So he's unconscious in comment, like, look, he doesn't know what he doesn't know, but now you know, so don't make those cardinal sins. But you always say it best, right? There's no need to prematurely lose money in the market.
Your money.
There's no need. Everything is set up where you can practice and perfect your craft to the point where you're not trading live until you're ready to trade live. And yes, there's going to be losses, but those are losses that come in the natural sense of trading, right? Those are your natural business expenses, not reckless, reckless losses for no reason. It's trading. And I understand why people do it. Right. They associate, hey, the quicker I can trade live, the quicker I can make this money and all this fun stuff.
So ironic.
But it's really the opposite. Yeah. It's jumping out of a plane without, your parachute ready. Oh, I can jump out this plane quicker. Yeah, but boom.
Yeah.
It's
It's
ridiculous.
going to take a lot longer to generate profits if you try to generate profits quickly. It's like, that is just it. It really will. It's worth taking a little bit more time, understanding, your system, optimizing your system, going in with the right mind, and you're going to do much better that way.
And from a monetary perspective, and this is what I always tell the traders. I'm sure you get this a lot, where it's like, hey, I've got $100. Can I start trading right away? And it's like, there's probably some broker out there that will say, yeah, but no, you shouldn't, right? $100 isn't going to do anything for you. While you're learning how to trade, right? Instead of trading live too early and blowing that $100 and then like being discouraged and being out the game because now you have no money, and because you have no money, what's the point of learning how to trade, right? Continue to build and grow that capital, right? That's what you want your money to do in the market anyway, right? You're trading not for a get rich quick scheme. You're trading to slowly compound your capital so that you can create bigger returns off the same percentage gain. So while you're learning how to trade and invest in that time, just save that money instead of recklessly blowing it. Save it. That way, when you're ready, you're already at a different level in the game. Instead of starting with $100, you train for a year. You're able to save up another $200. I don't know, but now you're starting with $300 that you're less likely to blow instead of starting too early with $100 that you will blow.
So good. Such good advice. Yeah, such good advice, man. And yeah, we do get that all the time. Don't go live too early. There you go. That's number 4 mistake. Number 3 mistake. Number 4, when it comes to orders, incorrect order placement, make sure, this is one of the biggest ones. And even traders who do all the back testing and everything, they go live and they still make this mistake. I made these mistakes plenty of times. It's very, very common. Placing the wrong orders. If you're using 2 targets or something like that, and one of your targets is hit overnight and then price action goes in the other way and you haven't adjusted your stop loss and now you're in a trade in the other direction, and you haven't set a one cancels other, or your order gets closed off at the end of the day and you think you're still in it, and there's so many errors or mistakes with order execution. And the result of incorrect order execution is incorrect trade management, incorrect, unrealistic expectations, because what you've tested and what you think you're going to get, you're not going to get, because you're making errors, and it will cause discouragement in your trading, and you want to nip it in the bud. This is why I think demo trading is great once you've done the testing, because it just irons out any of that stuff, any stuff that you can't possibly foresee in your back testing. You can't calculate spread. You can't calculate, you can't back test spread. You can't back test order placement. You can't back test any of that thing. So, it's worth just spending a couple of months just ironing out any of those, getting used to placing orders with a little amount of money maybe, or just a demo account.
No, you're dead on. And I forgot the name. I just gave this example a few weeks ago. There was a former NASCAR driver. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, and I'm so mad at myself for forgetting the name. But he went on he's going to do the Indy circuit now. And he's like, okay, it's driving a car at really high speeds. He's like, I know there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but I should be able to pick it up pretty quickly. So I think he said he thought he would go in and knowing like 80% of what it took. And then when he started actually testing it out, right, kind of, this is his version of demo trading, he was like, oh crap, this is completely different. Like the way it handles, the way it turns, the way I have to decelerate it and decelerate out of the curve is completely different. And he pushed his timeline back for when he's going to try and actually race, because he just needed more practice on an actual circuit doing the real things. And the same thing goes for like preseason matches or friendlies with any type of sport, right? There's a reason you just don't go from the practice field into regular competition, because it's different. It's different than watching film, than actually being on the pitch, being on the field in live motion, and understanding that, hey, things are at a different speed, things are a little bit different. So that's super important. You made a good point the other day. It was that weird day I was up like 4 o'clock in the morning and I hopped in the London live room. Insomnia, right? And you were talking to a trader about early identification for a trade. And I think it was a pattern trade, but it was like, the sea leg was forming, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna get orders on right now. And you're like, you should probably wait. And he's like, well, why? Well, and you walk him through, well, like, we're so far away that if the trade weren't to trigger and then you forget about those orders because they're on so early, before you know it, you may wake up and find yourself in a position that you didn't even know about. And yeah, that you shouldn't be in, and now you're losing money. And that's happened to me plenty of times where a stop loss has been hit because it was on. I just left it on. Because I forgot about it. It was on weeks in advance. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, why is that red? Oh, shoot. And it's reckless stuff like that is it kills traders, because I think traders need to understand, like, trading is simple, but it's not easy. Like, what we're doing is we're trying to exploit a very small edge. Like, it's a very small edge we have in the market. We're just consistently trying to exploit it. And when you can do that, it's amazing. But when you also kind of counterbalance those, the exploitation of that edge with little small mistakes, you just end up going back to break even or going backwards. So it's like, it's really eliminating the small self-inflicted wounds that, that will push you towards trading success. And, those are stuff that you're just giving away money. You're giving away money.
Yeah. And that was a true story. That was one of our traders, Duncan, a couple of years ago, who was drawing on his analysis on these charts and kind of arrogantly left his analysis on there, assuming that would play out that way, and that sea leg hadn't been met. So he came in the next day, price was hovering around the completion, he took the trade, and then realized the part of the trade setup wasn't valid. So he was now in a trade that he shouldn't be in. So he did the right thing and closed it off immediately. But again, it's a mistake, and you don't want to make too many of them mistakes in trading. You really don't. As Akil said, it's a tiny edge. We need to cling on to everything we can. All right. So I think the last one that I would say is probably the biggest one, and that is the mistake of focusing on money over percentage gain, and just focused on the money. I think that's the biggest mistake that traders make, that cause them emotional turmoil and to ultimately chase trades, revenge trade, give up, become discouraged, disheartened. Everything, all of the bad things that you could imagine with trading comes from focusing on money in your trading account.
Yes. That's it. Think about the emotional driver that money is. I mean, for so many people, it has so much of an effect on us, whether it's you're doing everything for the money, whether you fear money. It is one of the biggest emotional drivers out there. And it's something that kills trading. And I'm sure you've seen this as well. I've seen so many good traders that quit because they're not making enough money, or bail on good systems because it didn't produce enough money. And the percentage is the bigger thing. You got to think longer term with trading. In life, you need to think longer term, but especially in trading, think longer term. It's not about what you're producing right now. It's what you're going to produce 10 years down the road. And I would encourage this for anyone that's having trouble grasping that, right? So take a look at what your percentage, your return on investment is, right? So let's say your annual ROI, and look at it with maybe a small account, whatever you're starting with. And maybe it's not too sexy. Maybe you're that guy maybe you're starting with $1,000 account, and you're looking at like, hey, I made a 20% return. You're like, that doesn't really do anything life-changing for me. I want you to create an Excel spreadsheet or do it in your head, but like, start taking that and then build 10, 15, 20 years in the future, right? Add those gains to your current account balance, and then keep assuming that you're making that 20%. And by year 20, year 15, year 10 even, I want you to see what your account looks like, and then ask yourself, is that result worth your time? And if the answer is yes, then that should be a big eye opener for you. It's not about the now, it's about the later. And most of us have been investing for a while. I can tell you, when I first started trading, like, I wasn't making anything. Like, it wasn't life changing. I couldn't, like, month one, I couldn't go out and buy a Lambo or anything like that. It was like, I can, buy something nice for myself. I think I bought like a TV or something, like a flat screen or something like that. But then you fast forward 10, 15 years, and it's like, wow, I'm doing the same thing return wise, or similarly return wise, but now the result seems different because I'm
Yeah.
just doing it off of a bigger starting point, I guess you could say. And I don't think you realize that until you actually physically write it out and chart it out and look at it and then strive to get to that future point instead of being so consumed over what you're making now.
It's a great point. And finally, it's quite timely because today I got asked a question in the live room and they said, why does all logic go out the window when real money is at risk? And here's why. We need to survive. We need money to survive, right?
Yep.
And if we don't have money, we go into animal survival mode, which means that there's no logic. There's no logic. We can't handle logic. We can't handle creativity, logic, imagination, security, nothing. That goes out the window because we go into that animal brain, which is yes or no, binary. It's like...
Caveman.
It's caveman. It's fight, flight, freeze. It's feeding, mating, fighting. That's it, right? So when we go into... So if you're trying to trade and provide food for your table and living costs through your trading, and you're focused on that, that is directly linked to your survival instinct. And you're not going to bode very well if you're just relying on that, honestly. You just take your time, do less to get more. Step back, take a bit more time, and you will get there. Like, it's as simple as that. And hopefully you guys are going to shoot in some of your mistakes below, but really the purpose of this episode was to make sure that you guys could take this on board and maybe not make some of the mistakes. I apologize for the gardener next door because I can hear that through these headphones, but that's the point of the show. And hopefully you guys got value from that. And if you did, make sure you give us a little subscribe and thumbs up. And hit the notification bell to make sure you never miss an episode of these. And please share this around as well. Akil, is that it? Are we done?
Nothing more needs to be said after the way you ended that. That is spot on.
Good session.
Spot on.
Excellent, man. Well, look, it's been another great week. So, guys, until next week, have a great rest of your day in the markets and week. And we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for the Trader Coffee Break. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to never miss a live discussion. Follow our hosts on social media. And remember, do nothing to gain perspective on everything. See you next week.